welcome. If you don't, you are going to look at the competition as a challenge rather than as a welcome opportunity. I, coming from ICCR, I thought that I should briefly introduce what ICCR really is, not in terms of the whole range of activities which it does as part of the cultural diplomacy that we conduct, but also what we do for education, and then come on to the basic task of our vision for why India should take the forward march, and why and how you can make the most of what you're going to learn over the next couple of years. ICCR as an organization for cultural diplomacy. Now, cultural diplomacy I define not just as projecting culture or taking one Indian dance here and doing the Indian music over there, but cultural diplomacy I define more as a process of dialogue between two different civilizations in a space which does not cause rivalry or which does not cause challenging perceptions. Now, what do I mean by that? Very often in the politics, in the economics, which is basically business interest, whenever people say from India and US talk to each other, you have these perceptions of differences, competing for resources, competing for opportunities, and the sense that let us see who actually gets the maximum out of it. That is the usual phenomenon. When we talk in the cultural space, that space develops an understanding that both you and I have our requirements, like in the case of India and China. Now, it's a fact of life that both of us are going to need huge resources for our own development and growth in the years to come. China is going to continue to need the iron ore, is going to continue to need oil, even though it's a huge producer of oil, but it remains energy deficit, so does India. So we are going to compete with each other internationally for the resources. We have problems. You know about the border issue. You know the problems about development in the northeast, etc., etc. Now, either we can continue to challenge each other and continue to have that kind of a bitter dialogue where we all continue to assert our own right without understanding if there is a point of view on the other side or not. Talking in the culture space would really prepare the background so that we understand each other at a more benign level and understand that yes, you have a natural requirement, we have a natural requirement, and it is not unusual to compete with each other for those requirements. The only thing that is going to happen is that sometimes you are going to win, sometimes you are going to win, but that is not the end of the world, like in a sports area. So let us give an example of really say India and China. I'm talking about, let us say, about 200 years ago. No, sorry, not 200 years ago, but about 1,000 years ago. That's a time when Buddhism actually linked India and China. Xuanzang visited India on the Silk Route. Faxian came. Nalanda University was doing well. And at that time, the factors which linked the two countries with huge respect for each other was Buddhism and their culture. Even though they were still competing with each other, and that's an important thing to remember. We were still competing with each other in Southeast Asia, particularly into China, for political power. But we maintained the respect for each other's space. We did not let it come to a stage when we stopped talking. So that's what I mean. That's what the cultural diplomacy does. Now, as a part of this cultural diplomacy, apart from the several conferences, seminars we do, one of the very important programs that ICCR conducts is the scholarship program. We give scholarship to something about 3,000 international students every year to come and study in India. And when they come and study in India, they're sent to some of the best of the institutes. Those institutes are on a panel, and IDM is making an application, making a suggestion to be on the panel, and we are considering it very seriously. But some of the best institutes of India are on a panel, and they're sent to those universities and institutes. So today we have about 6,000, in fact, total. And we will begin to innovate. he will do different things, but he will not simply be content with threading the needle in and out, and he will begin to either avoid that work or find an approach. So that is an innovation. It's not a negative thing. If you can find a way to do the same thing with less manual labor, but much more efficiently, it is good. There is where the Indian identity again comes in. So discipline, and then the innovation. The third is youth. Almost every executive at an international level, whether you take Microsoft or you take Citibank, you take anyone, they belong to the very young group. It is not just an issue of demographics. It's a fact that the Indian youth starts their education early and they finish their education early as compared to those in the West also. Now, in the West, 2 years work experience is mandatory to enter into a good college, a business program. In India, you don't have to do that. If you have been able to succeed in the CAT or in the other competitive examinations, GMAT or whatever it is, there are so many, then you are able to start your MBA program here without having to go through the business experience. So you are a professional MBA by the time you are about 22, 23 or 24 in many cases, while most of the MBA graduates abroad will be in the range of about 30 years, 29 years, 31, 32. So the productive life is that much less as compared to you people. So there is an advantage in doing MBA early, even though some would argue that having business experience makes you better managers. But that's a way of looking. But that's the reason that the Indian MBAs are picked up from the Indian campuses by the multinational corporations because they find value for their money. The last point is really, which I've already said, identity, and culture is part of the identity. When you belong to the Indian civilization, it builds certain traits, irrespective of whatever your religious denomination is, whether Hindu, Muslim, Christian, etc. But Indian civilization, as somebody said, Indian civilization is one civilization, but number of cultures. So your identities are defined on the basis of your culture, cultural belonging, your religion, etc., etc. And your identities will change from place to place. You have one identity in the business place, you have another identity in at home. When you are about to get married, you have another identity. So multiple identities, but basic identity remains that you come from the Indian civilization, the land of India, where everything has come together. And what it means is that when, like we say, Ekam Satya Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, that means we are not fanatics. We do not get fixated on one idea that that's the only way to do things. If we find that that way is not working, we try the other way. So that brings in the element of flexibility, that brings in the element of adjustment, that brings in the element of accommodating others, and those are great qualities for any MBA program. So use all these skills, use all these characteristics to become better managers, not just MBAs, but the idea here is become better managers of whatever you are doing. And in that, your strengths are the skills you gain in the college here, in the institute here. Your strong points are your own cultural background. Your strong points are being able to adjust to each other. And your strong points are really using your Indian identity to the advantage of whatever you are doing and become a strength of the organization.